The stars above the quiet world of Theryx shone like countless silver lanterns. For generations, the Theryx people had lived in peace, their days spent in study, farming, and building knowledge. They were not a strong race. Their history held no great wars, no armies, no heroes of battle. Instead, they were known for their libraries, their music, and their understanding of the soil and stars. But on one dark night, peace was broken. The sky trembled with the approach of ships that did not belong to them. The core dominion had arrived. The core were an empire of iron and hunger. Their ships, black and sharp like blades, entered Theryx orbit without warning. They demanded tribute, slaves, and obedience. The Theryx leaders gathered in their council hall, their voices trembling as they spoke. None of them had ever faced war. None of them knew how to fight. Elder Riva, her skin lined with years of gentle wisdom, whispered what many feared. "We cannot resist them. If we stand against the core, we will be destroyed." Silence filled the hall. The Theryx were proud in their way, but not foolish. They knew the stories of other worlds that had defied the Dominion. Those worlds no longer existed. Only ruins remained, and so after long hours of debate, the Theryx made their choice. They would send a message across the stars. Not a message of defiance, but of pleading. Their signal was simple, translated into every major galactic tongue. To whoever hears us, we beg for mercy. We are a peaceful people. Spare us from the core dominion. Give us shelter. Give us protection, or grant us the kindness of safe surrender. Please, we do not wish for war. The signal was cast into the deep void, carried by waves of light faster than thought. The Theryx did not know who would hear it. They only knew they had no other hope. Days passed. Then weeks. The core still hovered above them, tightening their grip, taking food and resources while threatening greater punishments if demands were not met. The Theryx waited with fear in their hearts, praying that somewhere someone would listen to their cry. Far away on the edge of human space, the signal reached a listening post orbiting a barren moon. The post was small, manned by only a handful of operators, but its antennas were vast, pulling whispers from the farthest corners of the galaxy. Operator Jalen was the first to catch it. He leaned over his console, frowning as the strange alien words scrolled across his screen. His translator worked quickly, turning the language into simple human English. He read it once, then twice. Then he called his commander. "Sir, you'll want to see this." Within hours, the message was sent to Earth. Across human colonies, it spread through the network, reviewed by diplomats, generals, and leaders. The words were clear: mercy, shelter, surrender. Humanity had encountered many alien civilizations since they first traveled beyond their solar system. Some were traitors, some were explorers, some were hostile. But this message was different. It was not an offer of alliance nor a threat of war. It was a plea. In the great chamber of the Earth Council, leaders argued. Some believed they should ignore it. Humanity had fought too many wars already. Others suggested offering safe haven, perhaps moving a few of the Theryx survivors to a distant colony. But then Commander Elias Kane spoke. He was a man shaped by war, a veteran of battles against pirates, raiders, and other empires that had tested human steel. His voice was calm, but his eyes burned. "If we show mercy alone, the core will only grow bolder," he said. "If we give shelter, the Dominion will follow. If we promise safety, we must be ready to defend it. The Theryx do not need words. They need warriors." The chamber fell silent. Humanity had always been many things: curious, inventive, stubborn. But above all, humanity had survived by fighting when survival demanded it. No empire had broken them. No tyrant had cowed them. And so the decision was made. Earth's fleet would move, not with words of peace, not with gestures of surrender. They would answer the Theryx cry in the only way humanity knew when tyranny threatened, with ships of steel and soldiers of fire. On Theryx, the people gathered once more in their council hall. The days had grown colder under the shadow of the Dominion ships. Supplies ran low. Hope was thin. Many feared their message had been lost among the stars. But then, one night, the sky changed again. A sensor alarm rang across the city. Citizens rushed to the high terraces, staring upward. At first, they thought it was the return of the Dominion fleet in greater numbers. But then the ships appeared, sleek, powerful, glowing with engines brighter than suns. Dozens, hundreds. A fleet vast enough to darken the heavens. The Therics trembled. These were not core ships. These were not familiar traders. These were something new. The lead vessel broke atmosphere, its hull shining silver and black marked with bold letters none of the Therics could read. But when the humans broadcast their arrival, the words echoed across every channel in perfect translation. "We are the United Human Fleet. We heard your call. You asked for mercy. We bring you something stronger." The Therics leaders exchanged fearful looks. Stronger, what did that mean? The humans answered with silence, and the low thunder of war drums played from their communication channels, a tradition as old as Earth itself, carried now across the stars. From the flagship, Commander Elias Kane stepped forward to address both the Therics and the Dominion ships above. His voice was steady, his words sharp as steel. "To the Therics people, you begged for mercy. But mercy alone cannot stop tyrants. We do not bring surrender. We bring resistance. To the core Dominion, this world is under our protection now. Withdraw or face the full weight of humanity's warriors." The Therics gasped. They had prayed for a savior, a shield, a gentle hand. Instead, humanity had sent them soldiers, fleets, and the promise of battle. Some whispered in fear. Others whispered in awe. None could yet imagine what it meant, but deep in their hearts they knew one truth. Their plea had been heard, and the answer would change the galaxy forever. The night sky above Therics burned with tension. The human fleet floated in silence, their hulls glowing faintly in orbit while the Dominion warships watched from a distance, like predators circling prey. The Therics people waited below, every heart filled with dread. For weeks they had known only fear. But now they had seen something new. Human warriors who did not tremble, who did not bow, who stood tall even in the shadow of the Dominion. Still, no one truly believed the humans could stand against the full might of such a cruel empire. The first test was coming. On the Iron Resolve, alarms rang. "Multiple core ships advancing," an officer reported. "Frigates and destroyers. They're moving in formation." Commander Elias Kane stood at the center of the bridge, his expression unreadable. He had seen this kind of tactic before. The Dominion was probing their defenses. They expected humans to falter. "They want to measure us," Kane said quietly. "Then let us show them what we are made of." "Orders, sir?" Captain Mira asked. "Engage," Kane said. His voice was steady, carrying the weight of decision. "But not recklessly. Make them believe we are larger than we are. Every strike must look like a wall they cannot climb." The human ships shifted, spreading into arcs. Engines flared. Weapons came alive. The void between the fleets filled with bright lines of fire. From the surface, the Therics gathered on terraces and rooftops, staring up at the strange lights flashing in their skies. Some gasped in fear, believing the heavens were breaking. Others realized it was the humans and the Dominion locked in battle above their world. In the council hall, Elder Riva and the other leaders stood around a projection feed transmitted from the humans. Blue and red symbols danced across the map of the skies. The humans moved with calm precision. The Dominion pressed forward with aggression. "Can they win?" whispered Counselor Vela, his voice shaking. "The Dominion has ruled for centuries. No one resists them." Riva did not answer at once. Her eyes watched the human fleet closely. "Perhaps no one has ever tried with such fire," she finally said. The first clash began at the edge of the system. Core frigates darted forward, their weapons slicing the darkness with streams of energy. Human destroyers moved to meet them, shields flaring as they absorbed the first impact. Then came the counterstrike, torpedoes streaking like silver arrows striking the enemy ships in their sides. One core vessel broke apart in flames. Another spun out of formation, smoke trailing from its hull. The Dominion warlord Vare, watching from his command ship, snarled in disbelief. "Impossible. They are too new to the stars. How can they strike with such accuracy?" His second officer bowed his head. "They move differently than other prey, warlord. They change course too quickly. They fight with unpredictability." Bear slammed his fist against the arm of his chair, then crushed them harder. "Show them the Dominion does not bend." Back on the human flagship, Captain Mira smiled as reports came in. Enemy frigates retreating. They didn't expect that response. But Kane's expression remained grim. "This is only the beginning. They will send more and stronger. They want to break our spirit. They do not understand that humanity does not break." He turned to his officers. "Prepare ground forces. They will try to land troops to intimidate the Therics. We will not allow it. The Dominion did exactly that. While their ships pressed in orbit, small transports broke away, diving toward the surface. The humans were ready. Drop pods launched from the Iron Resolve, streaking through the atmosphere like falling stars. On the ground outside the capital, the first human Marines landed, their armor clashing as they formed ranks. The Therics, hiding in their homes and shelters, peeked out in terror as the core dropships descended. For the first time in living memory, battle would be fought on their soil. The Dominion troops emerged first, tall, armored, their weapons glowing with cruel light. They expected no resistance, but from the dust, human soldiers advanced. The clash was sudden and fierce. The core charged with heavy weapons, roaring commands. But the humans did not scatter. They moved in tight lines, covering one another, every step measured. Their rifles flashed, precise and relentless. When one human fell, another stepped forward without hesitation. To the Therics watching from hiding, it was a sight beyond belief. Their people would have fled, but these humans stood as if carved from iron. At the front line, Sergeant Leora Hale shouted orders to her squad. "Hold the line. Don't give them ground." Her Marines obeyed without fear. They fought not for glory, but for survival, for duty, and for those who could not fight. Each time the Corps pressed forward, the humans answered with fire and steel. A young Therics child, peering from behind a broken wall, whispered to his mother, "They do not run." "No," she whispered back, tears in her eyes. They do not. The battle stretched on. The Dominion tried again and again, but the humans adapted each time. They shifted formation, changed tactics, set traps in the ruins, and used the land itself as cover. Elder Riva, standing near the command station the humans had built, watched in awe. "They fight like water," she said softly, changing shape but never stopping. Kane, monitoring from above, gave his final order for the skirmish. "Push them back. Show the Therics that resistance lives." The Marines surged forward in a sudden strike, catching the Dominion troops off guard. Explosions lit the fields and the Corps retreated, their dropships scrambling back into the sky. The humans had held the ground. When the dust settled, the Therics emerged from hiding. They looked upon the human soldiers with a mix of fear and reverence. These were not the gentle saviors they had prayed for. These were warriors who had spilled blood upon their soil, not for conquest but to protect them. Sergeant Leora removed her helmet, her face streaked with sweat. She looked at the Therics gathering nearby. "You are safe," she said simply. "As long as we stand, you are safe." The word spread through the crowd like fire. For the first time, the Therics felt not only fear, but also a spark of hope. Above the planet, in the darkness of space, the Dominion regrouped. Warlord Vare was furious. His scouts destroyed, his troops beaten back, his pride wounded. "These humans," he growled, "they do not fight like prey. They fight like wolves." His officers exchanged uneasy glances. The message was spreading fast across the Dominion fleet. Humanity was not what anyone had expected. On the Iron Resolve, Kane addressed both his fleet and the Therics Council. His words were simple, but they carried the weight of iron. "Mercy belongs to the innocent," he said, "but for tyrants we bring only war. Let the Dominion learn that truth." The Therics Council sat in silence, their hearts heavy and shaken, yet deep inside they knew they were seeing something that would change their people forever. They had begged for mercy, but humanity had given them warriors instead. And in that moment, many began to believe that perhaps the warriors were exactly what they needed. The Therics had never seen such a sight in all their long history. Their people were scholars, artists, and farmers. Their ships were slow and small, made for trade or study, never for war. But now, above their skies, a fleet of steel giants hung like mountains in the heavens. The human fleet had arrived. From the tallest towers of the capital, the Therics looked up, their eyes wide with fear and wonder. Some fell to their knees, whispering prayers of gratitude. Others trembled, uncertain if these newcomers were truly allies or only another kind of conqueror. Elder Riva, who had led the council when the distress call was sent, stood before the great windows of the council hall. Her old hands gripped the rail as she watched the shapes of the human ships move into position. Her heart was torn between hope and dread. "Perhaps they are saviors," she murmured, "or perhaps we have only called one storm to push back another." High above, aboard the human flagship Iron Resolve, Commander Elias Kane studied the planet's surface through the viewing glass. His face was carved with lines of old battles, and his eyes were sharp as cold steel. Around him, officers worked at their stations, voices steady, hands quick. "Status?" Kane asked. "Fleet secured in orbit," replied Captain Mirasolin, his second-in-command. "Dominion scouts are still holding distance. They're watching us, but not moving." Kane gave a short nod. "They didn't expect us. They thought the Therics would beg and then break. Now they see humanity instead." There was no arrogance in his tone, only certainty. Humanity had built itself in fire and trial. From the first steps on Earth's moon to the farthest colonies, survival had always demanded courage. They had fought storms, deserts, and the void itself, and when enemies came, they had fought those too. To Kane, the core Dominion was only another threat. Dangerous, yes, but not invincible. On the surface, the Therics Council gathered in haste. The air in the chamber was tense as the humans' first message echoed again through the room. "We are the United Human Fleet. You asked for mercy. We bring resistance." Counselor Vela, a scholar of diplomacy, clutched his robes tightly. "This is not what we asked for," he said, his voice sharp with fear. "We asked for protection, for safety, for peace. Instead, they send warriors and threats. What if the Dominion strikes harder now? What if the humans only bring more destruction?" Others murmured agreement, their voices quivering. But Elder Riva raised her hand. Her eyes, though old, held a quiet strength. "Do not forget why we sent that call. We knew we could not survive on our own. The Dominion has no mercy. We begged for it, yes, but mercy was never theirs to give. Perhaps these humans understand a truth we have tried to avoid." "What truth?" asked another counselor. "That mercy alone does not stop tyrants," Riva said. "Only strength can do that." Moments later, a human landing craft descended from the skies, flames of entry trailing behind it. It landed outside the capital, its engines sending waves of dust across the fields. Theric citizens gathered at a distance, their hearts pounding as the ramp lowered. From within, armored figures emerged. Human soldiers stepped onto Theric soil for the first time. Their armor gleamed under the twin suns, their weapons slung across their shoulders, their movements sharp and disciplined. At their center walked Commander Elias Kane. His armor bore no decoration except the symbol of the United Human Fleet, a silver star crossed by a steel blade. His presence was heavy, his step steady, his gaze unflinching. The Therics had expected soft words, perhaps promises of aid. Instead, they saw warriors carved from iron, their very posture speaking of battles survived and battles yet to come. The crowd whispered in awe and fear. "Are these our protectors?" one farmer asked. "Or are they another army that will take what they wish?" The council approached, their robes fluttering in the warm wind. Elder Riva stepped forward first, her voice steady though her heart raced. "You are the humans who answered our call," she said. Kane bowed his head slightly. "We are. You asked for mercy. But mercy is fragile. It breaks easily under the heel of tyrants. So we came with something stronger." "Stronger?" Riva repeated. "Resistance," Kane said. His voice carried across the silent crowd. "Mercy cannot stop the Dominion. Mercy cannot hold a shield against their blades. But resistance can. Humanity does not kneel, and as long as we fight, those under our shield will not kneel either." The words struck the Therics like a storm. Some felt comfort, others fear. Counselor Vela shook his head. "You speak of war," he said. "We are not a people of war. We cannot follow such a path." Kane's eyes softened for a moment. "Then do not follow. Stand behind us. Keep your libraries, your music, your fields. We do not ask you to become like us. We only ask that you let us fight for you, because the Dominion will never stop until they are forced to." The crowd fell into silence. The humans were not what the Therics had prayed for, but they were what had come. In orbit, the Dominion ships shifted uneasily. Their commanders had expected easy prey. The Therics were weak, unarmed, unready. But now the humans stood in their way. A core warlord named Vare watched the human fleet with narrowed eyes. "Primitive vessels," he hissed to his crew. "They do not know what they face." Yet deep inside, even Vare felt a stir of doubt. The humans had arrived in strength, without hesitation, without fear. No one had ever answered a plea for mercy with an army before. It was a boldness the Dominion did not understand. He clenched his fists. "Test them," he ordered. "Send scouts. Strike their edges. If they are strong, we will see. If they are weak, we will crush them quickly." The order was carried out. Small core ships darted forward like wolves testing a new rival. But humanity was ready. On the bridge of the Iron Resolve, Captain Mira called out, "Enemy scouts approaching." Kane stood tall, his hands behind his back. "Do not retreat," he said. "Show them we do not yield." The human fleet moved with precision. Ships turned, weapons flared, and in a sudden burst of fire the scouts were destroyed before they could even retreat. The stars lit with the blaze of wreckage. Kane's voice was calm. "Now they know." Back on Theryx, the news spread quickly. The humans had faced the Dominion's first strike, and they had not only survived but destroyed it with ease. The Theryx people were stunned. They had begged for pity, but instead humanity had shown them power. For the first time, many of them began to wonder, perhaps mercy was not the answer. Perhaps the only true answer to tyranny was the fire of resistance. Elder Riva, watching the humans march through the capital with steady discipline, whispered to herself, "Maybe the stars sent us not the saviors we asked for, but the defenders we truly needed." The Dominion retreated for the moment, but the Theryx knew it was only the beginning. A storm was coming, yet for the first time since the black ships had appeared in their skies, hope burned in their hearts. Humanity had arrived. And humanity had come not with mercy but with warriors. The battle above Theryx had shaken the Dominion, but the war was far from over. Warlord Vare paced the command deck of his flagship, his massive claws tapping against the steel floor. He could not understand humanity. No race he had faced fought like this. "They are too clever, too fast, too unpredictable," he growled. "Send more forces. Crush them before they grow stronger." But even as he spoke, doubt gnawed at him. His scouts had returned, battered and broken. The humans had anticipated their every move, countering with precision and determination. Vare could feel the taste of failure in his mouth, something he had not known in centuries. On the ground, Theryx citizens emerged cautiously from their shelters. The once quiet fields and city streets were scarred by the first clash, but they were still standing, and so were the humans. Elder Riva walked among the survivors, her eyes wide as she observed the human marines tending to the wounded and rebuilding barricades. They moved with purpose, calm and methodical, even in the chaos of war. "This is more than defense," she whispered to herself. "They are teaching us what it means to resist." Commander Elias Kane oversaw the positioning of human forces across Theryx. The Dominion was regrouping in orbit, gathering larger fleets for a renewed assault. Kane knew this would not be a simple skirmish. It would be a test of endurance, strategy, and willpower. He called a council of his officers aboard the Iron Resolve. "They will attack harder this time," he said. "Expect anything. Expect deception. Expect desperation. But remember, humans never surrender." Captain Mira Solon nodded. "The troops are ready, sir. Ground forces are trained, fleet formations are prepared, and the Theryx are learning from us. We will hold." Kane's gaze turned to the holographic map of Theryx. "Then let us teach them a lesson they will never forget. Let the Dominion learn that humanity is not to be underestimated." The core Dominion struck first on the planet's northern fields. Ships descended like black shadows carrying troops with heavy weapons and merciless intent. Their numbers were greater than before, and their confidence stronger. They expected an easy victory, but humanity had not been idle. The humans had learned from the first clash, adapting their strategies and using every advantage the terrain offered. Energy shields were deployed in protective grids, and hidden ambushes waited among the ruins of the fields. When the Dominion troops landed, they were met not by chaos, but by discipline. Human Marines rose to meet them in formation, firing in coordinated volleys. Every attack was anticipated, every flank covered. The Dominion soldiers faltered, confused by the human tactics. The Theryx watched in disbelief. Their people had begged for mercy, yet the humans who had answered their call were teaching them to fight, not with weapons but with courage, strategy, and heart. Sergeant Leora Hale led a squad through the northern outskirts, her voice calm but firm. "Remember your training. Cover each other. Move as one." Her Marines executed every command with flawless precision. When a core troop attempted to flank them, they were met with a coordinated counterattack, cutting off escape and forcing surrender. A young Theryx farmer, hidden among the ruins, whispered to his sister, "I've never seen people fight like this. They never give up. Nor do they fear," she said, eyes wide. Above, Human ships struck at the Dominion fleet with precision torpedoes. Small human fighters darted through the void, weaving around enemy fire and targeting weak points. Every strike was calculated, every move a trap. The Dominion began to falter in space. Ships that had once been symbols of terror now spun helplessly as human tactics and relentless firepower cut them down. Warlord Vare growled in frustration. "Impossible," he bellowed. "How can such a primitive species strike with such force and precision?" His officers could not answer. Even they were beginning to fear the humans, not as a single force, but as a tide that could not be stopped. On the planet, the Tharics began to take notice of the humans' methods. Scientists and engineers observed the battlefield from hidden vantage points, studying the humans' formations, their communication, and their resourcefulness. Dr. Tellis, a leading Tharics physicist, turned to Elder Riva. "They are teaching us without words. We are learning how to resist, not by surrendering, but by understanding strength." Riva nodded slowly. "And that is a gift we never expected." For the first time, the Tharics felt something they had never known: hope. And not the fragile hope of mercy, but the strong hope that comes from knowing someone will stand for you. Days passed and the battle continued. The Dominion launched wave after wave of assaults, expecting the humans to tire. But humanity's endurance was unmatched. Soldiers rotated shifts, fleets maneuvered with care, and strategies adapted with every new attack. Commander Kane watched it all unfold from the flagship. "They are testing us," he said. "And with every test we grow stronger. Humanity thrives in challenge. That is why we survive where others fall." Captain Solon looked at the planet below. "The Tharics are inspired by our actions. They will never forget this." Kane's eyes softened. "They don't need to. The lessons we give today will echo for generations. They will remember that when tyranny comes, courage and resistance are stronger than fear." In one decisive strike, humans used combined ground and space tactics to trap a Dominion battalion between ambushes and fleet fire. The core forces were forced to retreat, their pride shattered, their plans in ruins. From the observation towers, the Tharics cheered silently, understanding at last that they were witnessing more than a victory. They were witnessing a turning tide. The core Dominion, which had crushed countless worlds without mercy, had met resistance unlike any they had faced. Even those who had doubted humanity's methods now saw the truth. These warriors were different. They did not fight for conquest or glory. They fought to protect the helpless and to uphold justice in a universe ruled by cruelty. Warlord Vare retreated to the far edge of the system, his mind racing.
"We underestimated them," he admitted bitterly.
"This is no ordinary species. They are relentless. They adapt. They learn. And worst of all, they inspire those they protect to fight." His officers exchanged uneasy looks. "What do we do, Warlord?" one asked. "Regroup," Vare said, his voice low and dangerous. "But know this, humanity will not be defeated easily. Perhaps we must reconsider everything we thought we knew about this species." On the ground, Elder Riva walked among the Tharic citizens, many of whom had joined small defensive efforts alongside the humans. They carried supplies, helped the wounded, and relayed information. Even the smallest acts of courage now mattered. "The humans have changed us," Riva said softly. "We begged for mercy, but we are learning something far more valuable. We are learning how to survive, how to fight for ourselves, how to rise even when all seems lost." Dr. Tellis nodded. "It is as if they are passing a torch, not of fire but of courage. We will remember it forever." Commander Kane addressed his troops from the surface after the victory. "The Dominion thought they could break us, thought they could intimidate the Tharics, and thought they could stop hope. They were wrong. Resistance is not just about weapons. It is about courage, strategy, and unity, and humanity has all three in abundance." The soldiers cheered, their voices strong and unwavering. They were not only fighting for victory, they were fighting to teach the galaxy that strength and courage could overcome tyranny. Above, the Dominion fleets withdrew. The human and Tharics forces had proven that even an empire of terror could be met with unyielding determination. The Tharics had begun to understand that survival did not come from pleading or fear. It came from courage and resistance. For the first time, the Tharics could imagine a future in which they were not victims. Humanity had not only saved them, they had shown them what it meant to fight for themselves. And far across the stars, the message began to spread. Humanity was not to be underestimated. Humanity did not bend. Humanity answered cries for mercy with warriors. The tide had turned, and the galaxy was beginning to take notice. The skies over Therix were quiet now. The black shapes of Dominion ships no longer hovered above the cities, their retreat marking a rare defeat for an empire that had once seemed unstoppable. The Therix people stepped carefully into the streets, their eyes scanning for danger yet finding none. For the first time in their history, peace felt real, not fragile. And yet it was a peace earned in fire and steel, defended by humans who had brought not mercy, but warriors. Elder Riva walked slowly through the capital city, her robes brushing against the dust-covered stones. Buildings had been damaged, fields had been scorched, and streets bore the marks of the fierce battles fought above and below. But life had begun to return. Farmers tended to their crops, children cautiously played among the ruins, and the Therix engineers repaired broken structures with the energy and knowledge they had learned from humans. The humans did not just save us, Riva said softly to Counselor Vela as they observed a squad of human marines helping rebuild a collapsed bridge. They taught us to rise, to endure, and to understand the meaning of courage. Vela nodded slowly. We begged for mercy, he said, and humanity gave us warriors instead. Perhaps this is the greater gift. Commander Elias Kane and his officers stood atop the highest tower of the city, looking out across the plains and valleys that had once been battlefields. The Dominion fleets had retreated to the edges of the system, nursing their wounded pride and reevaluating their strategy. Kane's gaze was steady, focused on the distant horizon. The Dominion will return, he said quietly. They always do. But for now, Therix is safe, and in time they will remember that the universe is not theirs to conquer without resistance. Captain Mira Solon placed a hand on his shoulder. You think they will change? She asked. Kane shook his head. No, tyrants never change. But they will fear, and fear can give the innocent time to live, to grow, and to fight for themselves. The Therix, once a people of quiet knowledge and art, began to see themselves differently. Inspired by humanity's courage, they started small defensive units trained under the guidance of human marines. These units were not meant to conquer but to protect. Young Therix men and women practiced strategy drills in open fields, learning to anticipate danger and support one another. Scholars taught their fellow citizens about human tactics, while engineers worked on energy shields and communication systems. Slowly, the Therix realized that survival did not come from begging, but from preparation and courage. Dr. Tellis, observing the new Therix Defense Corps, smiled quietly. We are learning to stand, not just hide. Humanity has shown us the way, and for that we are forever changed. Even as the humans worked with the Therix, their fleet remained vigilant in orbit. Space was never truly safe, and the Dominion could return at any moment. Yet the human officers understood that their mission was not just to protect, but to empower. Lieutenant Kale, overseeing supply drops to Therix settlements, spoke to his squad. We are not here to rule. We are here to give them strength. They will remember these lessons long after we leave. Another Marine nodded. They have already learned courage. They fight differently now, but they will never forget how it feels to be protected by those willing to stand and fight for them. Kane, listening from the command deck, added quietly, and someday, they may fight not just alongside us, but for themselves. In the distance, the core Dominion fleet regrouped. Warlord Vare had returned to his flagship, nursing wounds to pride and ego alike. His officers presented reports of failures, retreating troops, and lost ships. They underestimated us, Vare admitted bitterly. Not our technology, not our numbers, but our courage. Humanity fights differently than any species I have ever faced. They are not motivated by conquest or fear. They are motivated by something deeper, loyalty, principle, and unyielding will. His second officer looked uneasy. Warlord, what will you do next? Vare's eyes burned with cold calculation. Next we prepare, but we know now that when humanity rises, mercy does not meet them, only warriors, and they will not be stopped easily. On Therix, the people began to rebuild their society. Libraries were restored, music returned to the streets, and children played beneath the twin suns. But now their culture held a new element: discipline, vigilance, and courage. Humanity had shown them that survival and freedom were not gifts, but achievements earned through action and resilience. Elder Riva stood atop the rebuilt council tower. watching a group of young Therics practice defensive maneuvers. She spoke to herself softly. We begged for mercy and the universe sent warriors instead. Perhaps that is the truest mercy of all. Dr. Tellis joined her, smiling at the sight of students moving in precise formation. They will remember this, Riva. For generations they will speak of the humans who taught us to stand and not just to bow. Riva nodded. And they will carry that lesson beyond Therics. They will carry it into the stars. Commander Kane gathered his officers for a final briefing before the fleet prepared to depart. Therics is safe for now, he said. We have shown the Dominion what happens when humans answer cries for help. But remember, our work is never done. Protection is not permanent. Courage must be passed on. Captain Solon asked, Will the Therics continue without us? They will, Kane replied. They have seen the truth. That truth is stronger than fear, stronger than tyranny. The Dominion may return, but when it does, they will be ready. And humanity will be remembered, not as saviors, but as warriors who showed the value of resistance. As the fleet prepared to leave orbit, the Theric citizens gathered to bid farewell. Children waved small flags, adults bowed respectfully, and the elders whispered words of gratitude. Elder Riva approached Kane, her hands shaking slightly as she extended them. Thank you, she said simply, for saving us, and for showing us the meaning of courage. Kane took her hands, briefly nodding. No thanks is needed. You fought too. You survived. You learned. That is all that matters. A young Therics child ran forward holding a simple drawing of the human fleet, stars blazing, humans standing tall among them. Kane smiled, kneeling to receive it. We will carry this with us, he said gently. And remember, the stars are vast, but courage makes them smaller, one world at a time. As the humans lifted off and the engines of their ships flared, the Dominion could only watch from the edge of the system. Humanity had answered a plea for mercy not with softness but with unyielding strength. And the galaxy began to take notice. Across distant systems, whispers spread. A species that answers calls for help not with words alone, but with warriors relentless, disciplined, and fearless. The story of Therics would be told for generations. Not as a tale of surrender, but as a tale of survival, courage, and the fire that comes when humanity rises. And in the hearts of the Therics, the legacy of the humans endured, not just in gratitude, but in strength and hope and in the unshakable knowledge that mercy, when paired with courage, could move worlds. For humanity, the mission was complete. They had protected the innocent, humbled a tyrant, and left behind a people forever changed. But across the stars, in the silent reaches of the galaxy, other cries would echo. And humanity would answer, not with promises, not with words, but with warriors. Because that was what humans did, and that was what made them feared, respected, and remembered wherever the universe held tyranny.